Welcome to the Hoja on Architecture podcast. The Architecture of the Myth, Chapter 7, The Labyrinth, Space as Strategy. In the previous chapter, we explored the underworld as a space of thresholds, a domain structured by boundaries, passages, and irreversible crossings. The underworld taught us that space can regulate transition. But what if space does more than regulate movement? What if it actively manipulates it? What if space is not only something we move through, but something that directs us, misleads us, and ultimately controls us? The labyrinth is precisely such a space. Unlike the ordered geometry of temples or the open negotiation of the agora, the labyrinth is designed to disorient. It does not guide, it confuses, it does not clarify, it obscures. At first glance, it appears as a complex arrangement of paths, but complexity alone is not its defining feature. Its true power lies in how it restructures perception. In a labyrinth, direction loses meaning. The myth of the labyrinth begins with Daedalus, the master craftsman of Greek mythology. Commissioned by King Minos of Crete, Daedalus constructs a structure so intricate that no one who enters can easily find their way out. At its center resides the Minotaur, a creature that is itself a hybrid, neither fully human nor fully animal. The labyrinth becomes both prison and protection, a spatial solution to a political and moral problem. Architecture here is not shelter, it is a strategy. The labyrinth is not designed for habitation, but for containment. It holds the Minotaur within, yet it also traps those who attempt to confront it. This dual function is crucial. The same spatial system that protects the outside world from the monster also prevents the monster from being easily eliminated. Control is distributed across the structure itself. Power is embedded in layout. Unlike walls, which clearly separate inside from outside, the labyrinth dissolves obvious boundaries. There is no single barrier to overcome, no gate to unlock. Instead, there is an accumulation of decisions, left or right, forward or back, each one seemingly small, yet collectively overwhelming. The user becomes lost not because the space is infinite, but because it is organized in a way that defeats orientation. Confusion becomes a design tool. The presence of the Minotaur intensifies this condition. The creature is hidden, yet always potentially near. The labyrinth amplifies uncertainty. Every turn carries risk. Every corridor might lead closer to the center, or further away from escape. Space becomes psychological. Architecture begins to operate on the mind. Theseus, the hero who enters the labyrinth, does not rely on strength alone. He requires a system. Ariadne provides him with a thread, a simple yet profound device that allows him to retrace his steps. The thread does not simplify the labyrinth, it overlays a new logic onto it. It transforms chaos into sequence. Orientation, it seems, can be designed. This moment is remarkably architectural. The labyrinth represents uncontrolled complexity, while the thread represents imposed order. Together, they reveal that navigation is not inherent to space. It is constructed through systems, tools, and strategies. Wayfinding is never neutral. In contemporary architecture, we rarely encounter literal labyrinths, yet their logic persists. Consider the layout of large shopping centers, where circulation paths are designed to maximize exposure rather than efficiency. Movement is subtly extended. Decisions are multiplied. The visitor is encouraged to wander, often without realizing that the wandering itself is part of the design. The goal is not always to help you leave. Airports offer another variation of this spatial condition. Long corridors, repeated thresholds, controlled checkpoints, all organize movement in ways that feel linear, yet often obscure the broader structure. One moves forward, but rarely sees the entire system. The experience is carefully choreographed. Space becomes process. Museums, too, employ similar strategies. Exhibition sequences guide visitors through curated narratives. Paths are designed to reveal certain objects before others, to control pacing, and to shape interpretation. The visitor is not simply observing space, they are being led through an experience. Architecture becomes storytelling. Even digital environments reproduce the logic of the labyrinth. Video game level design frequently uses controlled disorientation to create challenge and engagement. Players navigate intentionally complex spaces, learning patterns, memorizing routes, and gradually mastering the environment. The labyrinth evolves into code. Control adapts to the medium. What the myth of the labyrinth reveals is that space does not have to be visible in its entirety to be effective. In fact, partial visibility often enhances control. When users cannot fully grasp the structure they inhabit, They rely on local decisions. And local decisions repeated over time can lead exactly where the designer intends. Power operates through limited knowledge. Daedalus, as the designer of the labyrinth, occupies a unique position. He understands the system because he created it. Others, however, experience only fragments. This asymmetry of knowledge is critical. The designer knows the whole. The user navigates the parts. Design therefore becomes an act of control. This idea resonates far beyond mythology. Urban planning, digital interfaces, bureaucratic systems all involve structures that shape behavior through organization. The labyrinth is not an ancient curiosity. It is a persistent model of how space can guide, delay, or restrict action. We rarely notice it when it works well. Yet the labyrinth also contains a paradox. It is a system designed to prevent escape, yet it can be overcome through strategy. Theseus succeeds not by destroying the labyrinth, but by understanding how to move within it. The thread does not change the structure, it changes the user's relationship to it. Control can be negotiated. This is perhaps the most important lesson of the labyrinth. Space may influence behavior, but it does not entirely determine it. Users develop tactics, shortcuts, and mental maps. They resist, adapt, and reinterpret the environments they inhabit. Architecture proposes, humans respond. The labyrinth, then, is not only a symbol of control, but also of interaction. It reminds us that design is never one-sided. Every system invites a counter-system. Every structure generates its own forms of navigation. Space is always a dialogue. In the next chapter, we will move from disorientation to alignment, because if the labyrinth disrupts our sense of direction, Greek temples do the opposite. They organize space around axes, orientation, and cosmic order. From confusion, we return to clarity. This concludes Chapter 7 of The Architecture of the Myth, The Labyrinth, Space as Strategy. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.